With Federations coming up soon, I think it's time to take a look at the other items that are available for Stellaris, so you can take a look at the various stores out there and be like, yeah, I should probably pick up one of these, but I don't know which. Well, it's a good thing that I'm jumping on this bandwagon of tier listing only 5 years too late, and we're gonna go and tier list some of the Stellaris stuff today. From expansions to ebooks, they're all here. Let's dive right in, shall we? First up is Lithoids, one of the packs that has the most amazing looking ships available in the game. Really, you really want to get this particular pack if you're into really sexy stuff. Now, obviously, you're not going to be really looking at ships at a close-up all that much because in my personal case, I'm too busy looking at like a higher level. It's kind of like in EVE Online that way. Do you really look at your ships all the time? No, not really. You're too busy looking at the numbers that are on the screen. But yeah, Lithoids by itself is actually kind of cool. It gives fresh traits to a species, something that we haven't seen before, especially not with the other species packs, which means that it gets a bonus point in my book. And on top of that, you play as rocks, so yeah, it's just quite good right off the get-go. On top of that, with Origins, it's going to get another boost with the new Origins specifically for Lithoids as well, which is yet another bonus on the tier list over here. That's right, Lithoids, in my book, it's actually the best of the species packs, really. I'm gonna put it as a I'm gonna put it under B because I think it's earned that spot where it's not amazing or awesome like some of the other expansions. It's still the best species pack out there. And it's if you want species packs, go and get it. The voice packs and all that stuff are great. In the meantime, we get to the very first expansion that ever was released. It is the Plantoids Pack. Oh boy, the Plantoids Pack. Where to start? Well, first of all, when it was first released, it was pretty expensive for what it was. You got a ship set for it, which I guess is pretty good, but overall, the amount of content you got for Plantoids was relatively minor, to say the least. Plantoids, you got your Plantoid portrait sets, you got your Plantoid ships, and that was pretty much it, really. What else was there? Yeah, it's ship models, city art, and that was pretty much it. So yeah, Plantoids is by far the weakest of the cosmetic sets, let's put it that way, which is why this is definitely a thing that you don't really need to get at all. It's gonna go into the E category because it's so unnecessary that it doesn't even come close to even humanoids or lithoids when it comes to these packs. You get an E. Then we have our very first full expansion for the video. My lord, it's finally hit. Also the most recent full expansion. It is, of course, Megacorp. Now, Megacorp by itself, very interesting, very turbulent time that the update came out on. It's had Le Guin. We saw the removal of planet tiles in favor for pops and pop jobs and all that stuff. And on top of that, what did it actually add? Well, we had the Megacorp business style of empire. You could have your Megacorp. Sure, it's interesting to play with. It plays extremely tall. You can get a lot of money with it, and they have their own ethics. Well, not so much their own ethics, but their own subculture with items that you can add, which by itself is rather cool. It's the corporate authority, which by itself, you know, it adds all sorts of flavor. You can have your criminals, you can have your mega church and all that stuff, and by that one, you know, it's rather good. I really like that. And then we have the Ecumenopolis, probably the #1 planet in the game if you want to have a large amount of fleets, because, well, you can crank out so many alloys with that bad boy. It is absolutely insane. And Ecumenopole, whilst to a certain extent in the base game, you can get one from the First League, I believe, and also from a Fallen Empire, but that's pretty much it. Aside from that, the only other place you can get a Megacorp is, well, an Ecumenopolis is through Megacorp. Then Caravaneer Fleets, which was a very interesting expansion, completely replaces the Spatial Nomads. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of that myself. If you don't own Megacorp, you will still have your Nomads, but if you do play with Megacorp, you get Caravaneers instead. They'll try to sell you stuff on a cyclical basis. They were broken for a little while, and on top of that, you can go gambling at their place and potentially earn the Galatron, which I guess it's kind of cool. Even though Caravaneers by itself, I don't really feel they add all that much value. The Megastructures also quite good, especially the matter decompressor. A class, you know, the amount of minerals you can get out of that is absolutely insane. Although not really as insane as, say, a machine world that is completely focused on minerals. So that's, for instance, something that is not there. The Strategic Coordination Center is also extremely good. The Mega Art installation, well, it's a bit so-so, really. The Galactic Slave Market adds on a bunch of cool stuff, new music, new Ascension perks, and all that stuff. But Megacorp is still, in my opinion, the weakest of the large expansions, which is why it is going to get a B from me. That's right, it's in the same tier as Lithoids, even though it's a little bit more expansive, but it's not as good as some of the other big expansions. And yeah, at least it's better than some of the flavor packs, let's put it that way. Speaking of flavor packs, we're going to go and take a look at Leviathans, the very first real story / mini expansion pack that came out after launch. It came out like in the end of 2016, and the real question is right now, has it aged well? Well, I'm happy to announce that yes, it has, because in my opinion, it has some of the coolest things within the game. First of all, there's the Guardians, it's the Leviathans, right? They're so iconic at this point that a bunch of models have been made for Kickstarter that you can buy through TT Combat. I ordered myself like 4 of them. There's a Dreadnought, there's the Worm, and there is the Ether Drake, as well as the Void Spawn, which is actually part of Distant Stars, but that's like a whole different discussion we'll get into later. But Leviathans itself, the Guardians, really cool. It adds so much flavor to these large entities in space, and yeah, it's really cool, especially the Enigmatic Fortress and the Infinity Sphere. I really love those. The Enclaves, another example of evolution over time. It used to be that the traders from the Enclaves used to be one of the best ways of getting resources in the game. That has been nerfed quite significantly ever since Megacorp came out with the Galactic Market and all that stuff. And it's kind of gotten balanced out with the artisanal group as well as the scientists, because the structures you can get from the artisans as well as the unity growth and the science growth from the scientists are actually really good and totally worth your while. Enclaves are still super powerful when it comes to Stellaris as well, and I think sometimes they're a little bit underused. War in Heaven, also part of this. Who doesn't want to see 2 fallen empires trying to beat the crap out of each other? I think that right there is a prig dealio. Of course, you got the Cutie Supporter Pack, which is part of that as well. If there's something in Stellaris and it looks cute, it will most likely try to, you know, purge you with a nuclear fire. And of course, a whole bunch of new musics, tons of events, tons of encounters being added. This is a great expansion. I really recommend for you to go and get this, but it's not S tier just yet. No, we're gonna put it into A tier. A tier, you say, ASpec? Oh yes, there's one story pack that is significantly better than this, but we'll dive into that one shortly. This is the one I didn't really want to talk about. It's Stellaris Infinite Frontiers. It's a book. You can buy it. I don't recommend it. It gets an F. Okay, you knew this was coming. We're gonna talk about Utopia, the best expansion in the game, bar none, and I'm gonna walk you through why it is just so good. All right, hold on to your butts, because here we go. Megastructures, number 1. Megastructures were added in Utopia. Excellent addition. Sure, we had ring worlds before. You could capture them. That's so cool. Boom, you can build them. Boom. It's great. Dyson Spheres, the classic sci-fi megastructure, is in the game. You can build it. Sure, it's locked behind a Ascension perk. We'll talk about that shortly. But still, it's so good. You have the Panopticon. You got the Science Nexus and all that stuff. Amazing. Then habitats. Habitats were also added to this particular update with Utopia, and on top of that, there's going to be additional features for habitats being added through federations with the new origin system, where you can start with only habitats. That right there is pretty cool, not gonna lie. Habitats by themselves, whilst not always that practical in my personal opinion, are still a very, very cool way to play as a tall empire, with system after system being buzzing full of these habitats. Very, very cool. Ascension perks. Alright. Now this one is a little bit difficult to talk about because Ascension perks, whilst they were added in Utopia, the system itself has then been added to the base game. There was a little bit of a huff about that at the time, mainly because machine worlds were locked behind Ascension perks, which then you needed to buy Utopia and Synthetic Dawn in order to get access to them. That was thrown out the window, and Ascension perks were then being added as a system within the base game. That's great. The content from Utopia, however, the actual Ascension perks, are still part of the expansion, and oh boy, are some of these Ascension perks absolutely awesome. The big three are here. It's the Synthetic Evolution, the Biological Mastery, and the Psionic through Transcendence are here. Those three paths are the quintessential game makers for you within the game. There are so many events attached to it. The amount of detailing that you can do with your species and other species as well, turning them into whatever you want, and the sheer amount of flavor behind this is just so good. The genetic engineering, the shroud, the turning into robots as well is just so good, so good. And even that by itself would have been enough to put it on that S tier right there for me, at least. But no, there's more. The wonderful people at Paradox were like, screw this. We're going to make some lightning in a bottle today. We're going to add some more awesome crap. Advanced slavery. Yeah, advanced slavery. It's a bit of a weird one, but yeah, we got things like livestock, for instance, being added to this particular expansion, where you can turn another species into delicious livestock, so you never have to make food ever again. Is it horrible? Absolutely. Is it sci-fi? Also absolutely. You can play as a chaotic evil species, and all you want, put them in forced labor. If you play an autocracy or xenophobe empire, you can totally do this stuff. It's beautiful. It's absolutely wonderful. Of course, this is me speaking from a gameplay point of view. Don't enslave anybody, please. But yeah, advanced governments as well. We had new civics being added, new authorities. We had things like, let's see, fanatic purifiers. Fanatic purifiers. I hate everybody, everything, and must die approach. The hive minds with their own unique civic system behind them and their own gameplay. Sure, it is easier to play as a hive mind because you don't have to deal with a lot of the more complex items behind, say, a democracy, and like factions or happiness and amenities and all that stuff. But still, it adds for interesting gameplay. And I really like hive minds, especially if you're a first-time player, because it just gets the bases done really, really nicely before you have to go into the more difficult stuff later on. Music, of course, is there as well. Oh my god, I almost forgot about syncretic evolution. That's there as well. It just synergizes so well with some of these other packs that we've already talked about, like Lithoids. They synergize so well. Especially with the several civics that is in there. Utopia, even if it was only the big three, the Megastructures, the Ascension perks, and the habitats, it would have been S tier. But all this additional stuff, it just adds so much more. And this expansion was pure, as I mentioned, lightning in a friggin' bottle right here. It's gonna go on S tier, no questions asked. It is up there. Oh god, let's get it in there. Oh boy, I really wish that we could get another Utopia because it's just so good. Okay, Ancient Relics. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a difficult one. I personally feel that Ancient Relics as an expansion was a bit of a missed opportunity, and I will explain my opinion in that regard. So the whole point behind Ancient Relics was the relic system and the dig site system. Now the dig site system, whilst cool, doesn't really do it for me, and I'll explain to you why. Imagine you are standing in a long corridor, and every few days you can take a step forward, pick up a pebble, and say something about the pebble before you take another step forward. That is effectively how the dig site system within Ancient Relics works. There is no randomness to it, aside for some minor side things that can happen. But there is no real decision making within the dig sites themselves. Do we send the team to the left? Do we turn on this generator to see what happens? Will the site explode, or this random space station fall into the gas giant below? No, there is nothing like that in there. Sure, the relics themselves are really cool, and there's a lot of cool modifiers and visuals to be had there, but the dig sites are just a missed opportunity. Actually, I'm gonna go and say the following: the best dig site in the game is not actually in Ancient Relics itself. No, it's in Leviathans. It's the Enigmatic Fortress. The Enigmatic Fortress has all the parts that I would wish that the dig sites from Ancient Relics has. It has a sprawling event tree. I put it on the screen for you what that actually looks like. It has an event tree with multiple steps, multiple options, multiple potential failures that can happen within the event. I actually really would like to see the Enigmatic Fortress to have a potential outcome where you can get a relic from the fortress. That would be really cool, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But as you may have noticed, for the last 2 minutes, I've not really spoken about Ancient Relics, and I've spoken about Leviathans. Why? Because, like I mentioned, the best dig site is in Leviathans. Now, the relics themselves, heavily moddable. There is a lot of really cool mods out there for Ancient Relics that adds a lot of really, really good flavor. Don't get me wrong, it is definitely something that you would want to pick up. Sure, we've got the new precursor empires with the Baul and the Zroni. That was part of it. The relic worlds, which you can upgrade to in Ecumenopolis down the line if you want to, if you've got Megacorp. Cool stuff as well. It's got new music. It's got tons and tons of these dig sites, which by themselves are really interesting, and they got cool outcomes, but in the end, you're just walking through a corridor waiting for another step to take forward, which I think is a missed opportunity, which is why Ancient Relics is going to get a C tier from me. That's right, it's going to get a C tier. Yeah, it's gonna get a C tier. Humanoids. So, with humanoids, what can you expect? Well, you get additional portraits, including the dwarf, which primo stuff, guys. Excellent. A new ship set, which up until Lithoids was the best looking ship set in the game, except for maybe Reptilians, in my personal opinion at least. And of course, with this video, if you think that, you know, I am wrong, well, I'm not. You are. A new empire, the Vor, which this is something with Stellaris that I'm really not quite sure what they want to go and do here, because there is no real world building here. There's individual events that can happen all over your game, but everybody's always like talking about the Commonwealth and the UNE, but the Vor Technocracy is there as well, but not really. They added them to the game as basically a subset, which is cool. It's got the voiceover set, including the Militarist, which was it this one where the Militarist was considered to be a little bit objectifyingly bad? I don't know. It could have been Apocalypse, but still, some ship art and some songs. Is it as good as Lithoids? No, it adds no new civics or new ways of playing. Except for maybe the Vor, but that's just a pre-scripted empire. Is it as bad as Plantoids? No, because you get the new voiceover sets and the Vor. So yeah, where do we put humanoids? Well, we're gonna put humanoids C or D. It's not as good as Lithoids by a long shot. It's definitely not on par with Ancient Relics. We're gonna put humanoids under D because that slot needs to be filled. Let's put it that way. The worm loves us, and that's why Horizon Signal goes in the S class. No questions asked. It's free. It's awesome. It's written by Alex Kennedy, the guy behind Cultist Simulator. Just if you have it in your list and you haven't downloaded it, what's wrong with you? This is a primo source of memes right here. Stellaris, Horizon Signal. I really, really wish that the dev team, or at least the people over at Paradox, would release an update like this every single year. Like, at least once, saying, okay, here's a free update with a single storyline. It's really cool. It's really kind of weird and stuff, and in the end your entire solar system turns into Tomb World or something along those lines. I really wish that they would just bring every single year a relatively known sci-fi writer, even within the into the literature sphere, or maybe even as a writer for games or anything like that, and just do something like Horizon Signal. It'd be so fun. It'd be so good. But that's just wishing what could be possible. In the meantime, Stellaris, Horizon Signal, the worm loves us, S tier, easy. Now, I know some of you have been waiting for this particular moment. You're all just like, when is he going to talk about Apocalypse? Like, has he talked about Apocalypse yet? Talk about Apocalypse, please. Where are you going to rank Apocalypse? Well, first we're going to need to talk about Apocalypse. Apocalypse by itself, again, is very similar to Megacorp. Came in a rather turbulent time. It was around the time that some of the FTL systems were taking out of the game, and only hyperdrive was remaining. No longer did we have wormhole drive, no longer did we have warp drive, and that took quite a lot of the time within the expansion, within the patch at least. But the expansion itself is definitely no slouch. It adds a lot of really cool stuff, I feel. The Colossus. The Colossus is extremely interesting as a strategic weapon, and you can obviously only get it in this expansion. You can destroy planets with it. You can crack planets with this to gain its resources, so you can turn it into a giant mining barge, for instance. You can turn everybody on a planet into spiritualists, if you would want to. You can lock a planet inside of a bubble and get research out of it. The Colossus is a relatively flexible ship, but it being locked behind an Ascension perk is not all that great, and in honesty, it's not really the big takeaway for this expansion. Titans also being added, very interesting ship design, or cool aura effects, the partition beam, the same weapon that the ion cannon gets, it's also part of this expansion. Very cool. You can add it to your fleets. All the other fleet packs, or at least other portrait packs, gets a Titan of their own as well, so that's cool. By itself, actually really cool. Flagships, even though it's gonna get dislodged by the Juggernaut in Federations, Titans by themselves, whilst maybe worth the package, is arguable, but still. The Ascension perks. Well, the Colossus project, as the aforementioned Colossus, needs to be built, and people will get really pissed off with you if you do so. Enigmatic engineering is very interesting for multiplayer, so that nobody can steal your tech. Bit of a waste of a slot, though. Nihilistic acquisition, whilst I've raved about this in the past, is not that great anymore, in my opinion. Still, though, it's a cool way of playing if you want to play as a raiding empire, and again, I am all about that flavor. So yeah, Nihilistic acquisition is really good. Now we get to the good stuff. Civics. Life Seeded. One planet challenge. That's the one. Life Seed is so good. You start off on a size 25 Gaia world and just go ham. That's the one. It's actually really fun to play as a life seeded species. It's definitely a challenge, but if you want to play tall, this is the way to go. Barbaric Despoilers, arguably one of the weakest civics in the game. You want to be a bunch of space pirates that never change the amount of money they ask for when they're invading? Yeah, that's cool. Barbaric Despoilers need some love, Paradox. Come on, they're pretty good. Post-Apocalyptic, arguably one of the more powerful ones in the game, because you can start on the Tomb World, and you can survive on other Tomb Worlds, as well as a whole bunch of other world types. Post-Apocalyptic is a really cool flavor starter civic, especially when you want to start on planets and stuff like that. But what is the best part about the game? It is, ironically, the Unity ambitions, at least for this expansion. The Unity ambitions are so powerful. If you finished off your tradition tree and you want to spend your Unity on something, the Unity traditions or ambitions are so good. Will to power, get +5 influence for a bunch of stuff. Being able to add more firepower to your ships, increase the size of your fleets. Unity ambitions are those modifiers that you really want. They're really good. Marauders, a really cool addition to the game. You can send marauders to other empires to go and raid them. I thought this was a great little addition, as well as the Great Khan. Somewhere in the game, the Great Khan may come up. Yes, it is a total mule situation, and yeah, it may cause some problems. Many memes were made with the Great Khan, let's put it that way. Music, of course, is there. There were a bunch of updates for it as well. I believe the Colossus adds the psionic assimilation. No, that's not psionic assimilation. That's the assimilation beam on your Colossus. But yeah, Apocalypse. Where does it go? Apocalypse is better than Megacorp. I know it doesn't add a completely new government system in it, which is fair, but Apocalypse, as of right now, goes into A tier just because of the flavor that it adds. The Titan, the Colossus, the Ascension Perks, the Civics, the Unity Ambitions, they add so much additional things, and just the big guns, right? Like, who doesn't love the big guns? The soundtrack, it gets updated. You should have bought it at launch because it's more expensive now. It has stuff on there that you've never heard before because it's only available on the soundtrack. Gets a B because it's good and it's cheap. You can also listen to it on Spotify or iTunes. Now we get to the final part, well, the last two remaining, really. Synthetic Dawn. Synthetic Dawn. Objectively a good expansion, but it has a couple of finagly things about it. So, play as robots, right? Something that players wanted for the longest time. I was even playing with mods for, I want to say, like a year with robots before this finally became a thing, and also contingency in the patch, by the way. Thanks, Synthetic Dawn. I think it was Chopek as well. But still, you know, Synthetic Dawn adds a lot of cool stuff. You can play as robots, you can play as your standard robots, really. You can play as Skynet with the Eliminators, you can play as the Borg with the Assimilators, and of course, my personal favorite, something that I haven't played in a very, very long time when I got the expansion, and all of a sudden I put my teeth into it and I loved it, the Rogue Servitors. The Rogue Servitors, really, for me, is the saving, well, not so much saving grace, I want to say, it's the best part of the expansion, really, because you get your own civics as robots, right? But Rogue Servitors is that beautiful blend of everybody's dead, there is only ice cream scenario, which I kind of like, you know, the robots do all the heavy lifting while the organics are just sitting in their domes, shagging and eating all day. That's effectively what's happening there. But yeah, Synthetic Dawn, it's, aside from that, it is relatively light. Sure, the new edicts, and not so much edicts, the new civics really is, it really adds so much flavor. And right now, as of 2.5, robots are still super powerful. They're kind of easy mode. Not as easy mode, well, they're more easy mode than Hive Mind, let's put it that way. Very powerful, very strong, very good, can roll out of control. They can get any planet they want because they have almost no habitability requirements for pretty much anything. And on top of that, they get machine worlds through their Ascension Perks, which is crazy. New portraits, new voice packs, but where does it line up in our chart here? Is it as good as Utopia? Absolutely not. No, it's not up there with Utopia. Is it as good as Leviathans? It's arguable. It's arguable. I do think it's good, but it's not Leviathans or Apocalypse good. And therefore, Synthetic Dawn is gonna go into the following category. It's gonna get a B tier. Oh god, it's hold on, I need to change the layer here. There we go. One more. There's not enough space here, so the original soundtrack will have to move up and down a little bit. But yeah, Synthetic Dawn is gonna go into that B tier. It's good to have. It's good additional flavor, kind of like how Megacorp works with the Megacorp type of empires, but it's not up there with Utopia. It's nice to have. It's good flavor, and it's also a good power fantasy, really. Yeah. This means that all the content packs, Ancient Relics is still coming in as dead last, sadly. But hey, what can you do, right? Because we got one more pack to go. Distant Stars. Distant Stars. So, I really like flavor. For me, Stellaris is a game of discovery, finding new things out there with new anomalies, discovering the universe at large. I don't really care for the combat in the game. Even though the game, as of right now, as of 2.5, really caters towards that end game where you have a massive fleet and conquer the known universe and paint it in your color. Distant Stars is the exact opposite of that. It's very much a early game, early to mid game sort of expansion where there's a lot of focus on flavor. And there is nothing wrong with that, really. Distant Stars does a lot of really good things. You've got your ancient gateways. You get your L cluster gateways. What is behind them? Who knows? You slowly need to tech up to that. There's a goal. There's a long-term scenario there. And that right there is something I'm going to be talking about in the upcoming video when it comes to my perfect expansion. Let's put it that way. But I really like this idea of we need to slowly over time unlock something. We need to set ourselves a goal, and that's what the L cluster really does. And there's a great reward behind the L cluster. It could be the gray. You know, you get yourself one of the best characters in the game. It is the best governor, the best ship. He dies, sure, but you know, you get him back, and a whole bunch of other stuff. You don't really want to use him as a robot because armies are terrible. You can always build new armies. You can get the Dragon Season. You can get the nanobot empire that is behind the gateway, and it adds so much color to the game, and I really, really love that. I think there was like 100 new anomalies or something like that. Now, anomalies in Stellaris usually are, oh, research an anomaly, you get X. But there's a whole bunch of them as well, which give you new things, like the Shrouded World, for instance, or the Pricky T. It's part of Distant Stars, I believe. So that right there is really cool. Unique solar systems, as I mentioned already. You've got the Kettling Star Empire. There's these small little lore and flavor bits there that really gets my juices going. And more Leviathans, the Void Spawn. We did talk about that earlier on when we talked about Leviathan a little bit. The Trash Bot, you know, the Trash Bot's great. It looks amazing. It's probably one of the best looking Leviathan in the game, and a bunch of other stuff as well. So that is so good. Some music there as well. No ship packs or any voice packs or anything like that. But Distant Stars gets from me the coveted S tier because it is a must-have. It is so good. It cannot be. If you're playing Stellaris without Distant Stars, you are missing out. I'm not even gonna lie. It is so good. It's probably also one of the cheapest ones when it comes to content and all that stuff. But it's just, it adds so much flavor. Like I said, I really don't really care for the combat in the game whatsoever. I really like having empires that are molded by their decisions, and Distant Stars really does that with the time clock event, or the box with the colored vials that really impact your empire in the long term, or even the enigmatic cache, I believe it is, the big old cylinder that floats around in space. That's Distant Stars. There's so many good things about Distant Stars that it is up there with Utopia and of course Horizon Signal, because the worm loves us. But yeah, there's the tier list. The tier list that, well, let's put it this way. It is probably the most important list of the year. It's 2019 after all, and Federations is coming up. Where is Federations going to sit? Is it going to be an A or an S tier? Because the big expansions, well, they're usually up there, but you know, it's always a question. We'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, I'm sure you have your opinion, which is obviously wrong, but feel free to put it down in the comments. I'm really looking forward to what you think is the best expansion within the game, and whether or not you agree with this tier list, even though I don't really care. If you want to see more of this type of content, then feel free to comment as well. I'm looking to potentially do another one with these, with the Ascension Perks, as well as maybe the Civics as well. Who knows? It could be, it could not be. It's just a question of whether or not I have time for it or not. But yeah, keep your eye on Christmas, because I'm going to be doing a very, very special episode of what I would like to call Ultimate Expansion. I'm going to call it Empires, and it's going to be awesome on paper, and developers, if you like it, and you can always steal it, you know how this works. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm looking forward to hear from you, and make sure you get Utopia and Distant Stars. You will not be disappointed.